How HIMARS changed the war in Ukraine. Russian invasion of Ukraine. Let's go.
The Russian invasion of Ukraine continues. The month of July did not bring
Still
any
continuing
earth-shattering changes
to
on the
this
battlefield,
day.
as Russia entered the operational pause phase after its success in Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, while Ukraine focused on destroying Russian ammunition depots and military infrastructure established in the occupied territories, also thanks to HIMARS, along with a slow-paced counterattack on the Kherson front. But neither side managed to make any major territorial gains in July, and the stalemate continued. In this video, we're going to describe the most important events of July, the fifth month of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Thanks to YouGov for sponsoring this video. Real-time information on the state of the world is hard to cache today. At the beginning
what
of
you got
July,
for us, Kings in general?
Russia continues to develop its success on the Donbass front. The 150th Motor Rifle Division, elements of the Chechen National Guard, and the 4th and the 14th Motor Rifle Brigades of the LPR militia continued their advance in Lysychansk. By July 2nd, it was reported that the Ukrainian units finalized their fighting withdrawal from Lysychansk to their next line of defense, roughly between Berestova in the south and
the Russians
Ryhovka in
finally
the
getting
north,
some
as Russia
territorial
captured the
gains.
city.
But the Ukrainians knew
Although
it, hence why they set up
claimed
their
an
second line of
encirclement of a
defense.
large Ukrainian force in the area, they failed to prove this with images or video, and the claim was later largely dropped. The next target of the Russian army in Donbass was to break through the Svetsk-Bakhmut line, and then fight for the agglomeration of Slavyansk-Kramatorsk and against the Slavyansk-Kostantinivka line. On July 1st, they also made attempts to advance towards Klinova, Novoluhanska and Vulehersk power station, where the 30th and 72nd Mechanized Brigades defended their positions against the 31st Guards Airborne Brigade and the Diesel Battalion, the 11th Motor Rifle Regiment, and the 5th Separate Motor Rifle Brigade of the separatist DPR forces. Here, the goal was to reach Bakhmut, the important transportation hub of the Donetsk Oblast. Russia also saw its attacks repelled in Dementivka of the Kharkiv Oblast and Pavlivka of the Zaporizhia Oblast.
But
they were both Russian army made yet another brutal attack on the civilian infrastructure of Ukraine.
Mate, Odessa is just not getting a break, is it?
Missiles on Odessa, killing at least 21 civilians. It was the first major attack on the civilian population in July, as similar brutal attacks took place in Chasiv Yar on July 9th, killing at least 48 people, and in Vinnytsia on July 14th, killing at least 22 people. On July 1st, the US government announced its 14th aid package worth $820 million to Ukraine, which included ammunition for HIMARS and 155mm artillery, 2 NASAMS, and 4 counter-artillery radars. On the same day, the Institute for the Study of War reported about a proposed amendment to federal laws on the Russian armed forces, which would transform the Russian economy into a wartime economy by prohibiting businesses from rejecting the state's orders for the special military operation and by allowing the state to force employees to work overtime. This amendment, which was adopted on July 6th, arose out of necessity, as Russia had started to brace for a longer conflict that would require more military production. Numerous Russian military bloggers that support the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but criticize the political and military leadership for failures on the battlefield, including the...
I also know, sorry, just quickly, because I'm thinking about it, I also know that, like, sometimes it's written in your contract that you have to go fight for the army as well, right? Russian contracts.
The former commander of the DPR separatists, Igor Girkin-Strelkov, also stated their support for the mobilization of the reserves of the Russian army. They believe that the forces deployed in Ukraine are insufficient to defeat the Ukrainian army and then control the occupied areas, and that only mobilization could change that. However, even though the majority of the Russian population is supportive of the so-called special military operation, mobilization is a risky affair. Supporting a war somewhere else is one thing, but being ready to participate in it is a completely different matter. Mobilization would be an unpopular decision even among many Putin supporters, and it would be difficult for the corrupt Russian army to actually execute it properly. Moreover, mobilization would mean acknowledging that the special military operation is not going according to plan, contrary to what the Kremlin has been saying since the start of the war. Therefore, general mobilization of the Russian army is unlikely at this point. But the Russian government has been employing other measures to alleviate the shortage of personnel deployed to Ukraine.
When recording this.
On July 13th, a report about the covert order of the Russian government to form volunteer battalions in the RF's federal subjects emerged. According to this report, each federal subject was assigned with creating at least one battalion with 400 men by the end of August. This would mean around 34,000 new recruits for the Russian army, who would first pass a month-long training course in Russia. Administrations of federal subjects encourage potential recruits with around 200,000 rubles, approximately $3,400 of enlistment bonus, along with 220,000 to 350,000 rubles of salary per month. The Russian media reported about the creation of such battalions in Kursk, Primorsky Krai, the Republic of Bashkortostan, the Chuvashia Republic, Chechnya, the Republic of Tatarstan, Moscow City, Perm, Nizhny Novgorod, and Orenburg Oblasts in late June and early July.
Is that it though?
On July 2nd, the 18th Guards Motor Rifle Division made another attempt to take Dementivka in the Kharkiv Oblast, but the 113th Territorial Defense Brigade repulsed it.
Mate, those
was to disrupt the Ukrainian supply lines along the T-2117 highway and secure the E-105 highway. Dementivka was also unsuccessfully attacked on July 8th, 12th and 14th. Securing it would enable the Russians to attack the city of Kharkiv once again, but at that moment Russia did not have sufficient troops to realistically threaten the second largest Ukrainian city anyway. There was also some minor action on the Donbass front, as the 90th Guards Tank Brigade tried to advance on Bohorodichne, where the 80th Air Assault Brigade defended its positions.
Nice, repelling that attack.
Another notable event of this day was the reported sabotage by Ukrainian partisans near Melitopol, where a Russian armored train carrying ammunition was derailed. It is notable that throughout July, Ukraine had a major focus on destroying Russian military infrastructure on the battlefield, namely its ammunition and weapon depots and oil depots. On July 3rd, the Ukrainians struck a depot in Melitopol.
Nice.
On July
Born
4th,
resistance.
Russian ammunition depots in Snizhne, Yakovlivka, Donetsk Oblast, at Donetsk Railway Station, in Dubrivne, Kharkiv Oblast, and near Kadivka, Luhansk Oblast, exploded. On July 5th, a military warehouse in Topaz plant in Donetsk exploded. On July 6th, the Ukrainian military destroyed Russian ammunition depots near the Kherson railway station and an oil depot in Donetsk.
The occupied lands that they're trying to take.
An ammunition depot exploded in occupied Shakhtarsk of Donetsk Oblast, where the strike by the Ukrainian army allegedly killed several commanders of the 106th Airborne Division. On July 9th, there were explosions at ammunition depots in Emirno, Kherson and Alchevsk. Then on July 10th, at the Chornobayevka airfield of Kherson. We can extend this list even further. Depots in the Russian rear were most probably destroyed by HIMARS, while those closer to the front lines could have been destroyed by other artillery systems.
I thought it was resistance,
a
but it's
NASA
not.
satellite, created for reporting on forest fires, is also useful to calculate military fires, and indicated that since the Ukrainians launched their methodic campaign of destruction of Russian depots, significantly fewer artillery fires had been recorded on the Russian side.
Shit.
On July 3rd, the Russian troops advanced from Lysychansk to capture Zolotorivka village. But the attempt of the Oplot unit of DPR to advance near Spatak was repelled by the 56th Motorized Brigade, while the 437th Motor Rifle Regiment's attack on Prudyanka was defeated by the Ukrainian National Guard. On the same day, the governor of the border region of Belgorod claimed that Ukraine shelled the region, causing the destruction of civilian infrastructure and the death of 3 civilians. On July 4th, Russia made several other gains in Donbass. The 31st Guards Air Assault Brigade captured Klinova in battles against the 72nd Mechanized Brigade. In the Kramatorsk direction, the Russian army crossed the Seversky Donets River. The Russian 36th Separate Guards Motor Rifle Brigade, the 3rd Motor Rifle Division, and the 90th Guards Tank Division attacked the positions of the 81st Airmobile Brigade and the 80th Air Assault Brigade on the Mazanivka Krasnopila Dolina Borodichnaya line, achieving small gains towards Mazanivka. In the Donetsk direction, the Russian forces pushed the Ukrainian lines to Savitsk Fedorivka Bakhmut. The DPR's Sparta Battalion's attempts to advance near Pobeda and Mariinka was repelled by the Ukrainian Donbas Battalion. But despite incremental gains in a number of directions, Russia was entering a phase of operational pause, which was evident from the words Putin said during his meeting with Defense Minister Shoigu. Forces that took part in active hostilities and achieved success, victory, should rest, increase their combat capabilities. But even though an operational pause phase, at least for the Russian troops fighting in Donbass, was declared, Russia continued small-scale offensive operations on this front.
They just didn't want to do
On July
a massive
5th,
push?
the Ukrainian military repulsed another attack at Dolina village, while also defending Bilohorivka of Luhansk Oblast. Russia was more successful in the Spirna direction, where Wagner mercenaries achieved small gains against the 118th Territorial Defense Brigade. Also on this day, the United States claimed that Russia was seeking to purchase drones manufactured by Iran, which was refuted by the Islamic Republic. Nevertheless, the White House National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, reiterated this claim on July 11th, stating that Iran was going to supply Russia with up to several hundred UAVs, and that Russian soldiers would start training on their use as early as July. We have yet to see any Iranian drones on the battlefield, but we'll see if the American claims are true soon enough. The Iranian foreign minister denied this claim yet again in a phone call with his Ukrainian colleague on July 15th. July 6th was the first day since the start of the war on which the Russian Defense Ministry did not claim any territorial gains, despite the fact that clashes were reported near Dolina, Mazanivka, Verkhnyo-Kamyanska, Bilohorivka, Prihorivka, Spirna, Novoluhanska, Vershina, Luhanska, and Lozova. On July 7th, Ukraine destroyed a bridge between Novobodanivka and Troitska to complicate the movement of troops and supplies between Kherson and other fronts. On the Kherson front, the 109th Territorial Defense Brigade repelled the assault of the 127th Separate Reconnaissance Brigade near Dobryanka.
It is just like that.
On the same day, President Putin tried to convey confidence to the parliamentary leaders of Russia and its people. Today we hear that they want to defeat us on the battlefield. What can you say? Let them try. We've heard many times that the West wants to fight us to the last Ukrainian. This is a tragedy for the Ukrainian people, but it seems that everything is heading towards this. Everyone should know that, by and large, we haven't started anything yet in earnest.
No, you've started everything,
after several
Putin.
attempts, the LPR units managed to gain ground against the Kalinovsky regiment in the direction of Verkhnyo-Kamyanska. On the following day, Wagner mercenaries conducted another offensive towards Spirna without success. Several more such attacks would happen until the end of the month, in an attempt to move towards Siversk, but without much to show for it. The 31st Guards Airborne Brigade tried to develop its success in Klinova too, but could not capture Vesela Dolina. The following several days continued with small-scale engagements on several fronts. Clashes reported in Hihorivka and Dolina did not break the stalemate, but the 11th Motor Rifle Regiment of the DPR militia pushed back the 30th Mechanized Brigade in Dolomitna near the Volhyhsk power plant.
Lost a fair bit
but while the Ukrainian army was under continued pressure from the Russian army in Donbass, they intended to capture momentum on the battlefield by gaining success on another front. On July 10th, President Zelensky ordered a counterattack operation to liberate the Kherson Oblast. With this announcement, the destruction of the Russian supplies on this front intensified, as blasts of ammunition depots in Tokmak and Novokakova were reported on July 11th and later. In the following days, the Ukrainian army repelled Russian assaults in Krasnopilya, Marinka, Mazanivka, Ivanivka, Dolina, Defenka, Kodema, and Veshina. At this stage, Russia was still in the phase of operational pause after long and grinding battles for Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, but continued conducting small-scale operations to probe for weaknesses in the Ukrainian defenses. On July 11th, the US government announced an additional $1.7 billion in aid to Ukraine. Overall, the United States has so far provided around $7.3 billion worth of aid to Ukraine since the start of the war.
Oh fuck, I snored. 7.3 billion, can I have some please? 7.3 billion. Where's that money going, my man? Where is that money going?
On July 15th, reports of the Russian regrouping in the Kramatorsk direction for the Siversk offensive emerged. which proved to be an indicator of the end of the operational pause for the Russian army, as on the following day, the Russian Defense Minister Shoigu ordered to increase the intensity of their military operations in all directions. Yet this was not reflected by any territorial changes on the ground, as Russian attacks on Kadema, Bilohorivka, Spirna, Vyshina, Dolomishna, Novoluhanska, Verkhnyo-Kamyanska, Berestova, Vylohorsk power plant, and other locations did not result in any kind of breakthrough.
So it was just continuous.
On these days, some good news for the Ukrainian army was announced,
just such a
as the Ministry of Defense informed about the arrival of the first M270 MLRS to Ukraine, which according to them will be good company for HIMARS on the battlefield. Furthermore, US Congressman Adam Kinzinger stated that the US House of Representatives allocated $100 million for the training of Ukrainian pilots on US fighters, which is an indicator that the United States is contemplating giving their fighter jets to Ukraine.
On July 22nd,
White House Press Secretary John Kirby confirmed that the United States could give the US-made military aircraft to Ukraine. But on July 17th, unexpected news came from President Zelensky, who dismissed the head of the Ukrainian Security Service, Ivan Bakanov, and the Prosecutor General, Irina Venediktova. This was explained by dozens of employees of these structures engaging in collaboration with Russian forces since the start of the war.
Why was it done?
On July 19th, Ukrainian Verkhovna Rada confirmed this decision. On July 19th, the Russian attempted offensive operations near Hudi, Spirna, Kryhorivka, Semihia, Vylohorsk power plant, Vyshina, and so on were all repelled. Russia's only successful operation was the partial capture of the village of Pokrovska near Bakhmut, where the 90th Guards Tank Division pushed back the 10th Mountain Brigade. Also on this day, Ukraine hit the Antonivsky Bridge connecting Kherson to Zaporizhia Oblast with HIMARS. The bridge was heavily damaged by this strike, but could still serve the purpose of a crucial supply line of Russian troops in Kherson. Ukraine aimed to destroy it as part of its operation to liberate Kherson. On July 20th, the Russian army continued probing the Ukrainian defenses in several directions without much success. The assault of Wagner towards Ivano-Darivka was repelled by the 118th Territorial Defense Brigade, and the attack of the DPR units on Novoselivka-Druha was repelled by the 114th Territorial Defense Brigade. While the
I'm quiet because there's really just like it's just such a slow slogfest. Do you know what I mean? Like you would have thought with the resources Russia have, like how quick it could have gone, but they just have a lack of technological advancement with their equipment. That it's making it so difficult for them to actually gain any ground, which is good for the Ukrainians and we're voting for them. But do you know what I mean? Like it is just a slow, small slogfest, and it's just horrible to see. And it's still going on. This is such a long series. There's no like foresight to the end of it. It's just a lot to take in sometimes. You know what I mean? Yeah. A lot to take in.
136th Guards Motor Rifle Brigade could not overpower the Ukrainian National Guard in Mikhailska. Although the original plan of the Russian command, forcing the collapse of the Ukrainian state by just entering the country, utterly failed, the harsh impact of the war on the Ukrainian economy is beyond any doubt. On July 21st, Ukraine had to devalue its national currency by 25% due to the ongoing invasion.
I didn't know that.
But the Western pledges for more military support
25%.
continued. On July 21st, the UK Secretary of Defence, Ben Wallace, pledged an additional 50,000 artillery shells, counter-battery radar systems and hundreds of drones to the Ukrainian army, while on the next day, the United States announced a new aid package to the Ukrainian army worth $270 million, which included HIMARS systems, GMLRS rockets for them, and 580 Phoenix Ghost drones. But the US also reiterated its position not to give long-range missiles, like ATACMS, with a range of 300 kilometers. Two notable events of July 22nd were on the diplomatic front. Lithuania lifted the ban of transportation on sanctioned goods to Kaliningrad over Lithuanian land, alleviating the anxiety of a potential confrontation between Russia and the NATO member state. Most importantly, a deal was made between Ukraine and Russia, agreed upon through the mediation of Turkey and the UN, with regards to the safe
We went over
export of
this.
Ukrainian grain to global markets.
How long did it really last?
This could help the world avoid a potential drastic food shortage. But the day after the signing of this agreement, Russia struck the Odessa Sea trade port with Caliber missiles, causing further suspicion with regards to Russia's intentions on actually realizing this deal. On July 20th to 25th, heavy battles raged around the Volhysk power plant. Russia intended to capture this area in order to gain access to the MO3 highway leading to Bakhmut.
So
the
what, they
DPR
just
militia
want that
units and
supply
Wagner
line
mercenaries managed to push back the 30th Mechanized Brigade from its positions and capture the Volhysk power plant and Novoluhansk on July 25th. Russian assaults on Ivano-Darivka, Verkno-Kamyansk and Spina were not as successful. On July 22nd, Ukraine continued its counter-offensive operations in Kherson. The 109th Territorial Defense Brigade defended the bridgehead on the eastern bank of the river Inhilets near Davydiv Bridge against the assault of the 7th Guards Mountain Air Assault Division. Along with that, there were reports of the advance of the 63rd Mechanized Brigade south of Vysokopilia, Kherson Oblast, which allegedly surrounded 1,000 to 2,000 Russian soldiers of possibly the 11th Guards Airborne Brigade.
The
reports of the surrounding of the Russian units were not confirmed later, but they indicated that Ukrainian troops were making gains in this direction. The Kherson Oblast administration official, Serhiy Hlan, claimed that the Ukrainian forces had liberated several unspecified settlements in Kherson Oblast, while foreign policy reporter Jack Detch referenced the US defense official who stated that on July 15th to 22nd, Ukraine liberated portions of Russian-occupied villages in Kherson. On July 23rd, the Ukrainian military struck another supply line linking Kherson to the rest of the occupied territory, the bridge in Daryivka village between Kherson and Novokakhovka. On July 26th, the President of the European Commission, von der Leyen, stated the intention of the EU member states to decrease gas consumption by 15%. The instability of supply through the Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline is going to cause further concern for the European leaders.
It also just makes, if they try and reduce the amount of gas that they're going to do, it reduces the amount of power Russia has in hold of them, because obviously in the last video, they, like I said, it's such a big bargaining chip being able to withhold oil to the rest of the world.
As Europe braced for gas austerity to be able to withstand Russian pressure regarding gas supplies. On this day, Ukraine also struck the Antonivsky Bridge in Kherson once again, making it unusable, along with hitting a Russian border checkpoint in Bryansk Oblast with Switchblade 300 loitering munition. The strike on the Antonivsky Bridge had forced Russia to build a pontoon bridge under the Antonivsky Bridge to help protect it from airstrikes. On July 26th to 28th, clashes around Spirna, Svyatihori, Verkno-Kamyansk, Semihirya, Kedema, Dovhenka, Slavyansk, and Soledar did not result in a Russian advance. At this point, the Russian army also intensified its attempts towards Avdiivka, where the DPR units put heavy pressure on the 110th Territorial Defense Brigade and the 56th
they put a focal point, and they were still
The Ukrainian army also stood its ground in the Bryskinska-Belihirka area in Kherson Oblast. The biggest gain of the Russian army on these days was the advance of the Wagner and separatist DPR units in the Vidrozhenia-Vershina direction, but they had failed to completely capture Vershina until the end of July.
Good for the Ukrainians.
Their further attempts to push back the Ukrainian defenders near Slavyansk, Sieversk, Avdiivka, Marinka, Soledar and Bakhmut did not result in any significant territorial gains until the end of the month. The biggest success of the Russian army on the last day of July was the capture of Semihirya by DPR units. The most controversial event at the end of July took place as a result of the explosion of the Olenivka detention facility of Ukrainian POWs, some of whom were Azov fighters. The explosion killed more than 50 Ukrainian POWs, for which both sides blamed each other. Ukrainians argue that the POWs were specifically moved to the building where the explosion happened a few days before the incident. Analyst Oliver Alexander later presented evidence showing that the Azov Regiment POWs were housed in another building within the Olenivka camp as late as June, solidifying Ukrainian claims. The request of the ICRC to visit the detention center so far has been rejected by the Russian authorities.
So they
On the
basically
last day of
committed
July,
another war
Russia
crime.
accused Ukraine of a drone strike on the Russian Black Sea Fleet headquarters in Sevastopol in occupied Crimea, which injured 5 people. Ukraine blamed this on Russia as another false flag attack. Throughout July, Ukraine made small gains in the Kherson Oblast, gradually grinding through Russian defenses, while also destroying its supplies and logistical lines in this area.
Still didn't
Ukraine's
gain that
advance
much
in Kherson
ground,
is
really,
similar
did
to the
they?
pace of the Russian advance in Donbass, which after the fall of Lysychansk was most successful around Bakhmut, while stalling in Avdiivka, Soledar, Siversk, Slovyansk, and other directions throughout July. But the biggest difference is that Ukraine has fewer losses in this offensive compared to Russia in its advance in Donbass. The death rate of Ukrainian soldiers was claimed to drop to approximately 30 per day by President Zelensky on July 22nd.
Can that be
A
believed
sharp
though?
decrease from around 100
Yeah,
to 200
that's a
daily
70
deaths during the
difference.
apex of the Russian campaign in Donbass.
Is that true?
These strikes
Or is
on
that
the
just
Russian
propaganda
infrastructure
from the
by
Ukrainian
HIMARS
side?
and other artillery
Is that
systems
confirmed?
on the Kherson and Donbass fronts have had a painful impact on Russian firepower. The situation in the Kharkiv and Zaporizhian fronts has remained stable in July, as it looks like neither side is ready to deploy forces sufficient to break the stalemate in these directions.
They're just happy
Manpower
with
and
keeping
equipment losses
their
continues to mount for both
borders
sides.
as they are at the moment.
On
Their
July
defensive
10th, the
positions.
CIA chief, William Burns, claimed 15,000 deaths in the Russian army, while according to the congressional sources, they
This
were
is this
briefed
month,
about close
right?
to 75,000 killed and wounded. There have been no new reports and claims of Ukrainian casualties in July. According to the Oryx military blog, these are the visually confirmed losses of Russian equipment by July 31st. 916 tanks, 1,775 vehicles, 101 command posts and communication stations, 14 heavy mortars, 219 artillery pieces, 94 multiple rocket launchers,
I
38
see.
aircraft, 40
So I don't think it's a new one each time. I think in the brackets next to it is the additional from the last video, right?
9 helicopters
the
and
deaths.
101 drones. And the Russian army reached a dubious milestone of 5,000 vehicles lost in this war.
Shit!
On the
5,000
Ukrainian
vehicles.
side, the visually confirmed equipment losses are the following: 232 tanks, 518 vehicles, 7 command posts and communication stations, 91 artillery pieces, 20 multiple rocket launchers, 39 aircraft, 11 helicopters, and 28 drones.
Alright,
Although the
interesting.
international situation in the Balkans and around Taiwan continues to remain tense, Ukraine remained the center of global attention in July, and there's no end in sight to that conflict.
And
We're
there
planning
still
more
isn't,
videos
is
on
there?
the topic, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see them. Please.
And you know I have, and I am definitely looking forward to the next episode. I've got a lot to catch up on, but I'm trying to do my best. Like I said, sometimes it is just a bit much, because obviously it's a slow slog, this whole thing, and there is no end in sight. But if you're looking forward to my future reactions, if you haven't already, head over to Kings and Generals page. That link's in the description box down below. If you're enjoying my reactions, looking forward to future reactions, you know what you need to do. You need to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will catch you in the next video.